Happy normals.
Welcome to Deeply Disturbing Things.
The podcast.
I'm Macy.
And I'm Naomi.
And we are two anxious counselors who like to talk about deeply disturbing things.
Peace. Peace.
I want to say these hard kombuchas.
Do you love them?
They're really good. I want to admit I talked a little bit of shit about Sarah. I love you, Sarah. I hope you
did. You?
I did. Afterwards, because I was like, I had only drank half of mine just because of how I was feeling last week. And at the very end, and she called it a cider, and you were like, no, it's a kombucha. I was like, oh my gosh, Sarah got drunk off a kombucha. And I thought that all the way up until I saw these notes, and I checked, I was like, 7%. Okay, 7%.
It's hard kombucha.
It is hard.
It's not the 0.5 thing.
Because I just remember, like, when I commented, I was like, your cheeks are so red. I was like, wow, she really, like, had that placebo effect.
Can't handle your kombucha.
I want to admit that so my shame doesn't fester. I apologize.
My shame does nothing but fester.
Is that not what shame does? Fester. Okay, well, I have a topic today. So my topic is, first of all, I'm just curious, do you know what the law is around recording about, oh gosh, how can I say this? Okay, hacking people's webcams. Like what the laws around taking, because that's taking.
Well, you're not supposed to record people without their consent.
Right.
Yeah. So is that what you're talking about?
In a sense, just because it doesn't cover that, but yes, there is that. And that's not every state. That's only certain states.
Our state,
yes. Yeah. And so yes, there's that one. There's also another one that specifically says you cannot basically like stealing people's data.
Yeah. That's
illegal. But there's no law that specifically addresses these attacks on webcams, which we'll go into in a minute.
That's why I always cover mine.
Yes, and I looked on both sides of it, like true, false, how often, and literally everything, like at least a colored piece of tape over it, like
yeah.
The one thing that I found that was a little more like small grain of salt, I would say, is that it's become a huge industry for those little sliders. Mm-hmm. So you don't spend $24 on a piece of plastic. It can literally be a piece of tape. Like that's all.
No, yeah, I usually use just a little happy face sticker because it comes off and on.
Right, I have a little static like sticky note that just sticks on it. So.
Yeah, and I started doing that when I saw a photo of Mark Zuckerberg with a sticker over his. I'm like, if he knows about it, then I want to be in on this.
That was actually one of the articles that I read. Zuckerberg, and then the head of the FBI also is like always. So I'm like, okay, that feels very warranted to be concerned.
Yeah, like they would know.
Right. So they're called these Trojans are noted. They're called ratters. Like these hackers are called ratters. RATTERS. Remotely activated. They remotely activate webcams using remote access Trojans called rats. They will then use that to film their victims in potentially compromising positions, changing, naked, sex, all those things. Even just regular pictures. One article I found said that it's so prevalent of an issue, so it more commonly happens to women, and I didn't even like think about this, but the dark web will sell webcam, sometimes even live stream. It's so
of people
common.
Being unaware.
Yeah, of even just like everyday things, not even sexual things. There is that, but like there's that stuff.
Right.
But it's so commonly done that
people like to be voyeurs.
It can literally cost a penny to access because it's so common and prevalent. Like
there's so much of it.
Right, which is kind of frightening.
It's creepy.
It's very creepy. So there is no law that talks about this remote access in and kind of hijacking because they're not recording. They are.
So it's live.
Well, it can be live. They're not the one recording it though, because if we're doing this right now, technically we're recording. They're not. They're just accessing our recording and then.
So it's not live. They're accessing recorded stuff.
So it can be either.
But isn't there a law against peeping Tom and voyeurness?
But that does not apply to technology. So that's where like these laws really severely need to be updated, because with the pace that technology has gone, like I agree, I think that falls in that category, and privacy laws, because there's that like you have the right to a certain amount of privacy within your own home. Seems logical. However, a school in Pennsylvania, it's one of the most well-known cases. It was sued for collecting a total of 27,428 screenshots and 30,564 webcam images of their customers, so students and whoever else they were giving their laptops to, probably employees. Photos from their student issued laptops. So they gave them to the students, which made me instantly think about like my employer at the university. They give you a laptop and they yell at you if you don't use it. Like after a period of time, they're like, you haven't logged in since blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't want to log into your laptop anymore, because what ended up happening is that the employees have access and it's stored somewhere.
Ooh.
Right. And that's where it gets really
uncomfortable.
Yeah. And if you aren't reading through everything from like, now there's like the smart, whatever, I don't know, coffee maker, any of those things, we've gotten really lazy as consumers in that way of, oh, technology, like I'm fine with having my smart hub, my camera, this being techie, without caring what protections are there. And there literally is very little law around that. So that means it can be really shady with how it's stored. And if that gets hacked, then all of your stuff is gone. So let's see. So in another, let's see here, invasion of privacy is detailed in digital peepholes. A company used remote activation technology installed on 400,000 of its rental computers to capture images of customers having sex, online gambling, and surfing the internet. The researchers also noted that government agencies such as the FBI can, and I verified this through other sources as well, can activate webcams undetected, sometimes without first obtaining a warrant. So there are loopholes built in because it's not clearly defined. It provides loopholes for the government as well. Not that we need more reason to be freaked out by the government, but there you go. Are
they watching us right now?
So one thing though to keep in mind is that they cannot access your webcam just because. So two things have to exist: a network, so you're connected to a network, and then it has to actually come in through like a phishing or an email based scam. You have to click something. You invite them in. That happens. So
it's like a vampire. Has to be invited in.
My mom experienced this a long while ago, where she got phone calls about money that you see the phone calls or emails about money being owed, and they like were walking her through these steps. And it's always they said it tends to be a small amount of money ish comparatively, and it's like an odd number, so it'd be like $516. You have to pay this much money, you owe us, blah blah blah. And it sounds either like a valid thing that, I don't know, Social Security, for example. It'll sound and look valid, or it'll be extortion-y. Like, we have images of blah blah blah, but like there's nothing there, it just is saying it.
Yeah.
Guess what the let's see here, how much money you have to have stolen from you for it to constitute an investigation of, like, to be followed up with.
5,000.
Oh my gosh, how did you know?
Because it's grand theft is 5,000.
Oh my gosh. I was like, that's so weird. Yes. But that, so.
I know that because I stole my mom's car when I was a teenager.
Oh, I didn't know. That's so specific, guys. Shit, okay. I just don't know these things. Did you get recharged?
No, but that's how I knew.
Hmm.
She didn't, but there was lots of threats.
I see. Okay. So it could either be that one route where there's like saying they have something on you. Most of the time, from what I've read, that's typically not the case. They're actually just playing on the psychological fear of shame and embarrassment, and so you panic and, oh no, I don't want that. I read an article that was talking about that where, what's the psychology term for it? Confirmation bias.
Mm-hmm. One of my faves.
Yeah, it was basically, they didn't call it that, but that's what they were talking about. That when they make it generalized enough, like some astronomy stuff. Astronomy, sorry. Astrology, thank you. It's like, there's science there. Where it's generalized enough, or fortune cookie, I don't know, that you will take it in. And many of these people, because you may be like, why would you fall for that? That's stupid. Many of them genuinely thought that they had information because of what was disclosed seemed specific enough. Mm-hmm. So don't buy it.
So it's like a blackmail thing.
Right, but they don't actually have anything.
Right.
So, but they may say they have access or pictures from your webcam, but they don't.
I always get threatening emails that say that I'm going to be sued for like stealing people's photos from my website. I get those all the time.
Well, probably because you're stealing people's photos.
I'm not. They're all my own photos, so I just delete the emails. But I get that all the time. And it sounds very scary and legit.
Yeah, I had one disturbing pop-up actually like a month ago, and it was one of those, and I knew not to click it, but it was automated. It happened so fast. I was actually in between teaching class, and I was going and switching into my other email, and it just popped up, and it was like Microsoft blah blah blah, do not restart your computer, do not turn it off, and it had a countdown, and it's like we are doing something to fix this error, and it said like, okay.
You clicked.
It was out of
you clicked.
Pure instinct. That bad instinct, but I clicked it. But I knew the second I touched it, and I immediately turned off my laptop, shut it all the way down, unplugged everything, just like
backed away slowly.
Waited 10 minutes before I turned it back on, and nothing had happened. But
you let in the vampire.
I did. That's so dumb. But so like with my mom, that happened, and they walked her, basically got the remote access. So she then went to her email, following the instructions on the phone. They did call her and followed the link. She then said that she saw a pop-up on the screen that was just like scanning all of her files on her computer. And then she said all of a sudden a little screen popped up where she could see herself like on the camera.
That's scary.
Right, terrifying that? Yeah. And then but again, maybe not knowing what's happening at the moment. And there was a significant amount of money they ended up taking out of her bank account. So it's don't click anything. So this right now we're fine. You would have to go and invite them in.
I'm nervous about everything.
Right. The thing is though, is we still don't protect the hardware like we should for webcams. We kind of just, they're there. Don't treat them that way. So here's what you do.
I'm worried about my life.
So, because I was like, well, what's the best protect? Like the little slidey things are things that everybody uses, or the tape. But they also have microphone, right?
Yeah, that doesn't protect against listening, but my phone listens to me all the time.
Right, no, everything listens to us.
I love purple unicorns. Watch what I find later on my
Oh
phone.
my god. That's so right, so true. And yeah, I mean, we've just like we as a society have invited in the vampire and we can't get it out now, which, I mean, there's pluses or downsides too, especially like if you think of like older generations who may not know how to handle those situations. Again, I click the button and I click the button.
And it's getting more and more savvy where it's getting harder and harder to discern something real from something fake.
I mean, it costs $40 to buy the software to hack into someone's webcam.
Oh.
Super accessible. You know.
Maybe I'll invest.
Right. And you can make quite a bit of money on it. So it's like a very tempting market for someone that wants to do that.
So you could actually, from what your mom experienced, they were like in her computer, right?
Yeah, so they and you've experienced it before where like there's programs you can use where they can remote in
to help you with a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's similar type of thing. They remote in, they will instruct you to give them a certain type of access, and they can literally lock you out and then just be sitting there running things. Yeah.
Well, this is why I'm worried for myself.
Oh, I'll tell you what the best practice is, but
so this is why they tell you to never do save passwords.
Oh.
I save every password because it's so much easier to log into my bank if it just automatically does my password. But if somebody can worm into your computer, they could just go to every website and hop right on if you have all your passwords saved.
Right. Well, and so I'm a Google user, so everything is in there, and I had a similar thing, and I went, so I never ever once, which feels really dumb for me because I feel like there was a point when I cared about and I've cared a lot less in my years
about security,
right? My privacy, but there's a page you can go to where all the stored passwords are, and it even has good on Google, you know, like here's how many are like we know have been compromised, like literally exist on the dark web. Oh, you know, just like 74. Great. And then it's like, here's how many could be, because we've seen you're using duplicated, like you're never supposed to duplicate a password.
I do that all the time. I have way too many passwords.
Obviously not enough. So it's like, that's a big no-no. I mean, they have whole computer systems that just sit and run the binary data, like, I mean, faster than you could even like say it. So that's bad practice. It should be different. They should be complicated. We took that one in training, remember that one long time
we
ago?
did, which was horrifying.
And it didn't obviously do anything. So it was,
well, it made me stress. It did that.
It did that.
Did it change behavior?
Not well. I don't think that really even told us like what to do, other than that was when two-factor authentication kind of was kicked off. And I did jump on that boat. So all my stuff has that. But even like it's helpful, is from what I read, like that helps. However, like use your thumbprint, don't do the where it's a code.
But people can take your dead finger.
I know, but at least they have to cut your finger off.
At least, thank goodness.
At least, because basically what they're saying is like anything that is on a network, and phones and Wi-Fi are pretty easy to hack into. So like if somebody really wanted to, they could easily get access and connect those two things, which happens. So thumbprint's the best practice for that. But for your webcam tip, and I'm going to do it from now because I teach online, so I use it a lot. And even today, I didn't even think about this. After class, I thought my Zoom was off. It wasn't, and I wasn't even on my Zoom link. It was another instructor's Zoom link, but we had like subgroups, and so it pitched me back into the main group. But I thought I had closed out of it, and I went over there, and like luckily it's like muted and it had the background thing on. But I walked up to it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I mean, even simple mistakes are not good. Go to your computer settings. Go to hardware, and you can actually disable your camera and your microphone when you're not using it, and that actually disables the hardware itself, versus because you're just kind of covering it That doesn't mean they can't see it. That doesn't mean that if it falls off, they're not there. I don't like the idea of someone potentially being there.
No, I don't want anybody there.
Because
Get away.
if you let them in theory, if they get what they need, they could return.
Yeah, what do they need?
To go in and access your password, get your Wi-Fi password, I don't know, whatever they need. I saw a similar thing that it is possible for like security indoor cameras for people in like burglaries to track like motion detection to detect patterns of when people are coming and going. Because all the ones that just stay on all the time and just detect motion.
I am intrigued by really smart criminals though, in a way. Like people that have the ability to hack. That is such a level of knowledge beyond me. I'm fascinated.
That article that I read about the security cameras, it was like it's possible and here's how it's possible. They don't have like research really supporting that it's happening. Just in all fairness, but the other ones haven't. So I plan on disabling the camera and microphone. It's super easy, just when I'm not teaching class, because that's really the only time that I'm like extensively using.
I feel trapped sometimes by technology. Like the idea of just being completely off the grid is so appealing.
Yeah.
But I just don't see how that's feasible. Like I would have to completely change my life. Well, it's so appealing.
And that's the trap of it. And even younger generations, I mean, they are more, I would say they are more engrossed in technology, but they're almost, for some, less tech savvy because they're in it's all has been made simple, like simplified. Here's what you need.
So intuitive.
Yeah, it's the app.
Navigate on my phone, find games and stuff.
Right, it's made to be easy to navigate.
She just turned 4.
Like when I had my first computer, like it was complicated. I had to like figure it out, and then I downloaded Linux and like learned that. And
not McAfee.
No, and even just like being someone who had to struggle with Microsoft
soft serve
XP. Or XP was the better one. Sorry, Vista was the like. They don't even use the computer.
Hey, I came up in AOL dial-up, so
I know. Like I still so even that, like, I have some younger students or just younger people in general that when they log in, it's like they're fumbling around. It's almost like they're now the older generation because it's like, oh wait, how do I do that on here? Because they're used to doing it on the phone. I use Zoom on my phone or my iPad or whatever.
Most people use their phones, not computers.
Right. Macs, it's a myth that Macs don't get viruses. It is just a little more, there's more PCs than Macs that exist in the world. So more people are going to write hacking code and phishing stuff for the thing that exists the most. That's the majority of the why. So it exists. Protect yourself.
Protect yourself.
Well, and it's weird to me. Like I would not probably have my laptop like this in the bedroom.
And guess who sleeps with their laptop? Me.
Oh my god, it's you.
It's my best friend.
Mine's in my office, but when I think about it, I'm like, gosh, I have at times like, oh my gosh, I forgot to put on a work shirt. Like, done a quick change, I'm sure, but. And then I was thinking, oh, it's probably people too who have online or distance relationships, who are online dating, or, I mean, because it could be any of that stuff.
No, I just like, at the end of the day, like my whole like relax, like I have an hour between when Stella goes to sleep and I crash, like that's my time. I get in my bed, I got my laptop, maybe a snack.
In the zone.
And I can just like zone out and watch whatever. And then I fall asleep. So then my laptop's open, filming me sleeping.
You literally have a webcam page. I mean
40 hours of me rolling on your pillow.
Costs to watch that.
Hopefully not a lot, because I don't think it would be really that neat.
Probably not. Mine would be like me talking to cats and dogs all the time. Oh, the stored password thing. I'm circling back to that.
Yeah, that freaks me out.
So I didn't know that existed. And I mean, in theory, I did. I haven't mentally given it any conscious thought. So it stores everything since ever stored, even for accounts and things that don't exist anymore. So I had like in like previous dating apps in there, not apps, sorry, websites.
Yeah.
And it shows like a username and a password. But like when you go and you put it in, it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
But it looks like all this stuff is real. And I had my partner go and because I was there and it was like, oh, I thought you closed that.
And it looks like it's current.
Yes, well, and there was like
keeping the options open.
Well, and anything. I mean, it makes you think like because there's so many like random.
I'm just there for friends.
Yeah, just friends. No. There's so many random things too that you make passwords for, and then you don't end up using the account, and it's just sitting there.
A lot of sites just make you make a password. I hate that.
Right.
Like you can't even buy something unless you make an account.
Well, there's typically is a guest button.
So I can't have it both ways. I can't make a different password for every site and also not save my passwords.
I know that's the hard.
Like you can't do both.
So their suggestion is write it the F down, lazy bitches.
Well, then my piece of paper is gonna get stolen.
That's less likely to happen in your house than it is to have someone, because someone accessing your online data is way easier than them breaking into your home. And if they break into your home, they actually may get like in trouble.
Knifed by me.
Correct. So, I mean, you know, our older generations really probably had it right with those little books, those little
what do you mean?
Address books that have like the back pages as passwords, like one page. I know it had like 50. There was 200 saved passwords in there. It looked like I did so much on my computer, but it's literally because that Google account is the first Google account I ever had. So it would have had to have been maybe even like right outside of high school. It's a long time with a lot of
passwords. That's a lot of passwords.
Yeah, so I've been through it and I've been deleting them in my spare time. I'm like, I don't even know what that is. That's an old work, so many work email, like work things, like old HR systems and yeah, it's like just get out.
Yeah, get out, HR systems.
Yeah, so and a problem with that too, even if you're like, well, well, they're not active. Again, if you're using repeat passwords, it doesn't take someone that intelligent to try to sit and repeat and use those on current things you're using.
Yeah. I still think living off the grid is so appealing. You don't have to deal with any of this.
That pressure would just be kind of calm.
Yeah, just write letters on paper. Call people on a landline. Yeah.
I started to color recently. The mandala-y coloring books.
Yeah.
As a just like a de-stress in the evening. Because I was having this like urge to do more that could wait. Color.
Crafting was relaxing. I made some crafts last weekend.
Oh, I can't. I think crafting is different than coloring in the sense. So it's not about creating a picture. It is literally about repetition and.
I feel relaxed though that same way of coloring when I do like a craft thing.
Do you?
Yeah. It accesses the same part of my brain.
Do you have an outcome? Like this is me asking personally. Because what I end up doing with almost everything is I'll start it and then the next time I go in, like I'll do like part of the background of the picture. And then the next time I go in, I will pick a different picture and I'll do a different thing. Like I'm not it's actually even harder for me to, I think, go back into something that was already started. But I never finish it because they're always long.
My craft last weekend was very outcome related. I was making treasure boxes for us to put our garnets in that we found. So it was like a whole thing. And you know I love collaging. Like that's what I love. That is an art form. So I was
like that.
collaging treasure boxes and lining with velvet for the kids.
That's nice. I found sorry, it'll be your turn. You're gonna say I found at least my topic honestly wasn't that much content. Yeah.
Give me the fears.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. Give the fears. I don't know. but there are like things you can actively do.
Yeah. Live off the grid.
Mm-hmm.
What were you gonna say?
Oh, I found at Value Village. Have you seen one of those like puzzle boxes? It's wood. It looks like a solid piece of wood, and there's like a drawer, and there's like jewelry compartments in it. But when you pull the whole thing out, there's like hidden like puzzle. Like you turn this, and then it opens like a secret drawer
Like
or something.
Hellraiser?
Right. I
I
found
like
one of
that
those.
stuff.
It was cool. I got for like $14, and it had like the artist, somebody out of Florida who now lives in Mexico. Oh, it was cool. It was like, ooh, this is where everyone must have kept their drugs in the 70s. Like actually the 85 is the date on it.
Some more crack than cocaine.
Is it crack in the 85s?
Yeah. 70s is more the coke.
It definitely was not marijuana. There was
coke is really getting popular again.
Red crushed velvet. That's what I was thinking. Red crushed velvet.
I did green velvet.
Ooh, I have a chair that's green velvet, and I find it quite peaceful.
It's like grass.
Yeah, it's grounding.
It is.
Also,
like grass.
Money also probably has drugs on
it. I know, money is so gross.
Money's so dirty.
We should
That's a topic.
We should analyze them sometime with like.
Oh, I have a microscope.
A blue light and all that.
Ew.
I
actually just got really grossed out thinking about looking at it. Like, what if there's living things?
No, there are. There's species on every freaking dollar bill.
They've
put out research on it.
I believe that.
I'm gonna do a psychology topic and a murder topic all in one. Right.
Okay. That's not a big jump. I see how most murder probably has something to do with that.
I'm gonna talk about a Munchausen or factitious disorder, and then also factitious disorder in another person, or Munchausen by proxy.
Ooh, this has come up in one of our things about probably a specific serial killer or something we've talked about.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
I love psychology stuff.
Me too.
Factitious disorder is in the DSM-5, and it's a diagnosis assigned to individuals who falsify illness in themselves or in another person. But what's tricky about this is it's without any obvious gain.
Is that because is that where like it would be like if okay, let me backpedal.
So that sets it apart from other,
like a disorders. Financial something, but could it be attachment? Like,
well, in somatic symptom disorder, people seek excessive attention. Correct. For genuine concerns.
Yes, I've actually worked with
And then there's malingering, where people falsify symptoms for personal gain. So this is different because it's not those two. So there's no identifiable gain that people will get. It's also extremely difficult to both diagnose and treat because it really is very rarely seen.
Well, and I'm having a hard time still differentiating in my brain, I think.
Yeah, have you ever had anybody that you treated with it?
No, but I've worked with people with somatic type where it definitely was like a psychological stressor and or a substance related something where it's presenting physically to get that need met. And some of it was attachment based, and that's where I'm having a hard time separating because I think I have put attachment and that together because I'm like, well, why then? But that's their thing is there is no
right. I mean, that's the differential.
Is that antisocial thing with the flare or?
And I think people don't know that this specifically says without gain. I think the general public and myself included, before I researched this, thinks, well, it's for attention, or something like that. Like there's something that you're getting, whether it's power, whether it's whatever.
Right.
So I've never worked with somebody that had this, but I did work with a teenager who, after months and months of treatment, it became apparent the mother had this, and that the teenager was actually just fine.
Oh.
And it was really interesting.
Actually, that makes me think a little bit more, yeah.
So that's the Munchausen by proxy.
I feel like I think I've seen that, but again, it's really hard to to not know what type of gain.
Like if they're gain or not, yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know how to define that.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I want to
know.
Well,
we know the DSM is flawed.
Is that why I'm stuck?
That's why you're stuck.
Oh, we're in the DSM.
Because
I can stop trying. So
yeah, stop trying.
I'm like, but tell me
this
what
is like one of those movies that you stop trying to understand and just go along for the ride.
Bullshit. All right.
Okay. So case studies. So it only shows up in hospital very rarely. So we really don't know a lot about it.
Well, because how are they gonna? They have to do like physical stuff. They have to address that first.
Yeah. And I worked on this case with a team for months and months and months before everyone was kind of like, hold on here.
Right.
And it really was difficult because then once you know, what do you do? There's not much you can do. No,
because you can't stop people from utilizing resources, which tends to be what pisses people off the most, like the hospital staff. Like, get out.
Yeah.
But like you can't stop them from using a public service like that. So it just keeps happening. You just provide education, but if they're doing it intentionally, like
it's very interesting.
Yeah, you just need a team. But there's not enough people to support that. Like not enough people have it.
Well, and this was just a lot of it was just kind of like, this is what we think. Being that the person is not our actual client, you know, it's all like you don't really have a lot of control over the situation.
I mean,
unless it becomes a life-threatening, which it didn't get to that point. It was very weird and concerning and disturbing. But it was not at that point where it was life-threatening, where it was like, okay, we need to take some serious action.
Because I mean, you might head this direction anyways, but is it possible that it's actually something like how the DSM has like personality disorders, honestly, categorized in a really unhelpful way?
I think that's part of it.
Like maybe it's a combination of, you know, trauma, attachment, and I mean because BPD could be some of that attachment based early trauma. I don't know, like
that's
or
why
antisocial where it's like, or is this the brain? Is there a brain thing happening, like, or OCD where there's like a brain thing happening? Tell me more DSM if you're gonna put it in there for people to diagnose people.
You know, I always kick the DSM in the face.
You know,
always.
Still on top of my gecko page. I pull it down for class. I point at it.
I use it if I need to reach a high, shelf. I use it to step on.
Yeah, I mean, it's a necessary.
It's a necessary
thing. Yeah.
So case studies suggest that there are two main groups of people who are commonly affected. So women between the ages of 20 and 40 with a healthcare background, and unmarried white men between the ages of 30 and 50. So I can see having that healthcare knowledge would come into this. Interestingly,
this may just, I mean, it's a random side note. As a counselor, referrals coming in, most people don't, from my experience, disclose where they work, other than people in healthcare, aside from counselors. It is the scribes, the techs, the
what do you think that's about?
It becomes stress. Like it is like one of the number one issues is like how much work and stress they have. So I mean, to me that like lines up. Okay. Yeah.
So you're putting stress in there as an ingredient.
High anxiety, high expectation, high risk of failure, high financial risk. Sure.
So in my research, everybody really says you have to proceed slowly with diagnosing this. And you have to work best as a team because it's so complicated and their treatment options are limited if the person doesn't admit to the deception. So really, if you have to proceed with caution, and you don't want to wrongfully accuse somebody of this, because then you ruin the relationship and they're gone.
Well, let's go somewhere else.
Yeah. So there are 4 primary criteria.
As they do, those
those criteria.
Those 4 things.
Intentional induction or falsification of physical or psychological signs or symptoms.
Okay.
The individual presents themselves as ill, impaired, or injured to others. The deceptive behavior persists even in the absence of external incentives or rewards. Another mental disorder does not better explain. That's like
no substance use. Yeah.
So the behaviors. Lying about the symptoms, and also typically lying about other aspects of life. So that really came up with the mom that we were working on, and that was where our eyebrows first raised, because the mom was telling these incredible stories that, you know, you want to believe people, but at the same time, part of you is like, can that be true? How can all of this be true? You know, it was so grandiose. Manipulating test results to suggest the presence of symptoms, such as adding blood to urine samples. So people go pretty far with this.
I mean, yeah.
You know, you carry that little sandwich baggie of blood and just.
Well, I mean, my mind instantly
drip it in there.
Went to the people that like will poke holes in condoms, or you know, like do things that are like.
Or get their friends pee for that drug test.
Right, like that maybe normatively we would be like, what? But they're doing it to get something, even if most people would say, why would you do that?
Yeah. Actually inflicting symptoms upon themselves, such as poisoning themselves with an overdose of medication. So that's where it seems a little like behaviors we might see in a BPD.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Traveling from hospital to hospital, so there's a lot of this lengthy medical record. So if you actually dive into the record, you're going to see many different hospitals, many different doctors, really a lengthy medical record. And sometimes there's symptoms that are hard to disprove, such as severe headaches or pretending to have seizures or pass out, you know, where you can't really say it's not a thing or it is a thing. Tampering with test results, such as heating thermometers to suggest a fever.
I mean, I did that as a child, but
to miss school.
To get picked up by my father.
Oh.
To go to pizza. I didn't realize how big of a deal it was to call out of work at a prison. It's a big deal.
You got pizza even though you were sick?
I did it all the time. Well, it was
see, there's your external reward.
We'd go to Alfie's and
so that was not
video game,
Munchausen.
salad bar, and a pizza.
Clear external reward.
Right. And then I mean, most of the time I was probably really sick because I was I remember faking it several times. He knew, but he knew.
It can also aggravate pre-existing conditions such as rubbing dirt or dog feces into wounds to cause an infection or reopen previously healed wounds.
See, and that's a pretty big, to me, that's a big step from just like having like an attachment, like there's premeditation there. Like I've been so angry, maybe like trauma hurt, where like you get that tunnel vision and like you could see yourself doing something stupid in the moment, but with logic and time and your brain opens up, like you don't do that thing. But that takes planning, like between point A and getting to the hospital for that infection that took 10 days.
Yeah.
That's a lot of.
It's putting a lot of energy into this.
Right. That is.
It's a lifestyle.
Yes. Which does seem a bit different than the BPD in that way, though.
So similar to BPD, risk factors are believed to include childhood trauma, so complex trauma.
Right.
But also working in the healthcare profession.
That is
so interesting.
Yeah.
And then some, you mentioned antisocial. Some researchers believe it might be related to antisocial personality disorder, and individuals like the power and control of manipulating doctors
it sounds kind of narcissistic
or others in authority.
Yeah. Narcissistic. So the antisocial doesn't work for me fully. It did at first. I was thinking like, well, maybe like when I was like, oh, and like the OCD, the brain disorder part of it. But it should be kind of consistent across time and place and setting, not just isolated to these specific things.
Just to like this health stuff.
Healthcare, yeah, that doesn't make sense for a brain disorder. Your brain's not logical like that. So that rules me out for antisocial.
You're leaning more towards childhood trauma, BPD.
Narcissisty is in there. I because there's that power and control aspect for sure. The women age range, maybe childhood neglect, abuse. That's the age range is interesting.
Do you know who Munchausen is?
No.
So Baron von Munchausen,
of course, it's a von,
was a German aristocrat, and so the syndrome is named after him because he was famous for telling wild, unbelievable tales about his exploits and past. So that's all, like what we've talked about is really people inflicting things on themselves. What I think is more concerning is factitious order in another person, or what's called Munchausen by proxy.
Yeah, because you can see parents or caregivers, and
so this is almost all mothers inflicting on their children.
That makes sense. I mean, people, the dancing children. What is that show?
The Dancing Children?
I don't know that one show.
Dance Moms?
Yeah.
What about Dance Moms?
Aren't they all those people?
What do you mean?
Aren't they all inflicting constant pain in their own stuff upon their child?
I think that's stage mom disorder.
Is it a proper
That's probably the back of the
What are the 4 criteria?
That's probably one of those emerging
Just happened.
Yeah.
But there's like that similar projection and that immediacy and tunnel vision, and I'm curious. I want to know this not gain part, because there's obviously gain attached to that.
Well, I think that part is complicated. Because I don't see how you wouldn't be getting some kind of gain.
Right, that's
like either attention or power or revenge, or the 4 needs.
Right.
What's the 4th one? Attention, power.
Love? Yeah, no, that's attachment.
Avoidance? I think those are 3. And then there's a 4th. I just don't see how there wouldn't be some underlying, even if it's unconscious, that you're getting some kind of
air, water, food, and shelter?
Yes. You're getting the air.
Yeah, and that's
revenge, I think is the other one. Yeah, I think it's attention, power, avoidance, and revenge are the 4 needs, basic needs. So I could see those all coming into play here with this.
Attention, power, revenge, and what was the other one?
I think avoidance.
Avoidance. Okay. I just want to see.
Just my best guess.
The 4 goals of misbehavior.
There you go.
Undue attention, misguided power, revenge, and assumed inadequacy. Ooh. Assumed, like you just, like not feeling good enough.
But how would that show up in a behavior? Learned helplessness?
Well, now I'm curious. So it's the need for belonging and significance. This is from positivediscipline.com. Just to say. They say they want children to thrive.
Do they though?
Undue attention. When it's about undue attention, usually the adult feeling is irritation or annoyance. Often experienced between a mother with young children.
I don't know if this is the website is saying the same thing.
The child's coded messages notice me, involve me usefully.
I swear avoidance is one, not that other one they said. Because you do a lot of behaviors to avoid shit as a kid. Like break a dish so I don't have to do dishes anymore.
So it's the 4 types of, is it
goals of misbehavior, yeah.
Attention, power, revenge, display of inadequacy, different website.
Who are these people?
CanonCity.org.
All right. Well, I want to talk about murder.
Good.
Possibly murder.
Oh my gosh, I just put it together. View of inadequacy, a child not feeling like they're meeting those sexual urges for Freud.
Gross.
Just a tight.
I would like to discuss the
Murder.
famous case of Marybeth Tinning. So this case is known to everyone and everywhere as a case of Munchausen's by proxy. But I don't know if it is.
Bring it on. We talked about the horse in the street.
So this is like one of the most famous cases of Munchausen by proxy. This is the story of Marybeth Tinning and her 9 dead children. But when I was reading about it, I'm like, I don't know if this really fits.
Okay.
So between the years of 1967 and 1985, Tinning, who lived in New York, gave birth to and buried every single one of her children, 9 children. None of her children lived past the age of 4. People in their town thought the family had a death curse or like a death gene, like something was genetically going on. And they asked Marybeth why she continued to have children, knowing they would likely die. And she replied, "That's what women do."
Gosh.
So let's get into the children's deaths. On December 26, 1971, the Tinning's 3rd child, Jennifer, was born. And she was diagnosed with hemorrhagic meningitis, had multiple brain abscesses, so basically her brain was bleeding, in utero, and she only lived a week and never left the hospital. So she is the only child believed to have died by natural causes out of the 9.
Okay.
2 weeks after Jennifer's death.
That was the first one, though?
The one that died. It was her 3rd child, but the first death.
I see. Okay. Okay.
So
significant
trauma.
I don't sound like significant trauma, the loss.
Yeah. Definitely.
I mean, I feel like, you know how you listen to DSM, like rule out substance use, rule out what's the other one? Other diagnoses that are better.
Psychotic disorder or something.
Right. Like there's that chunk. Like they could easily just put in rule out trauma, childhood trauma, abuse, neglect. But like that would be
where
like would personality disorders go?
Away. As they should.
Away. Well, and then like histrionic disorder. That's like less than 0.02% of people.
You know, I hate that word.
Get less than 0.02%, which means that it's just given by people who just looked it up randomly and said, "Ooh, I think that applies." Like it doesn't exist anymore because it's not culturally relevant anymore.
But
I know.
But it does. And so 2 weeks after Jennifer's death, which significant trauma, loss of a child.
So rule out. It's not this done. Go ahead.
So Tinning took 2-year-old Joseph Jr. to the emergency room, claiming he had experienced a seizure and choked on his own vomit. The doctors found nothing wrong with him. They observed him in the hospital for several days and sent him home. So only a few hours after he got home, Marybeth brought him back to the emergency room and he was dead. On March 1st, Marybeth rushed 4-year-old Barbara to the hospital because she said she had gone into convulsions. The next day, she died after being in a comatose state for several hours. And that was attributed to Ray's syndrome. The other child's death was attributed to cardiopulmonary arrest. So the doctors are attributing these to medical causes. So that's 3 children dead now. 1 natural causes, 2 by things the doctors attributed a medical cause to.
Well, and then the most recent update of the DSM that they made changes to, well, there's a lot that wasn't changed, but for postpartum depression, like that, it's not, like you think that that's like shortly after, you know.
No, it could be like years.
It can be years. So it's interesting, like it's within 4 years, she's had this significant trauma, psychosis within that is super risky. like if you get psychosis within postpartum depression, like the risk of potentially hurting your own child is pretty high.
And these are different cultural times, so they weren't looking at it with that lens, I guarantee you. This is the blame the mother phase still, you know, where if a kid had autism, they blame the mother as being a refrigerator
like
mother.
The whole genetic, like it's your fault.
No, they said the refrigerator mother was cold parenting. They actually blamed mothers for autism. A frigid mother, yeah. 1973, Marybeth gave birth to son Timothy, and less than a month later, he was brought back to the hospital dead. Marybeth told the doctor she had found him lifeless in his crib, and doctors attributed this to SIDS, or sudden infant death syndrome.
Which is a thing, yeah.
Yes, which is a thing. In March 1975, Marybeth's fifth child, Nathan, was born. And later that autumn, he died in the car while driving around with her. This is the 70s, there were not car seat laws, who knows what was going on. In August 1978, the Tinnings adopted, so no genetic link.
This is when people went, huh.
Yeah, newborn Michael. And
Patsy.
a couple months later, Marybeth gave birth to her sixth child, Mary Frances.
Mm-hmm.
In the following January, she rushed Mary Frances to the emergency room, which was directly across the street from the hospital. I mean, with this history, you need to live right across the street from the hospital.
I guess.
Saying she was having a seizure, the staff were able to revive her and said it was aborted SIDS. A month later, Marybeth returned to the hospital with the same child, and she was in full cardiac arrest, but was revived, but had irreversible brain damage and was taken off life support 2 days later.
I have to look something up. Curious.
Marybeth's eighth child, Jonathan, was born in the fall of 1979, and he died in March of the following year after being kept on life support for 4 weeks.
Okay.
So the adopted child in February of 1981 fell down the stairs and suffered a concussion. So this one's suspicious to me a little bit.
Right, but if you have 9 kids, I mean, statistically speaking, that's not that. I mean, 1 out of 9.
No,
those 2.
They're all dead at this point.
Well, no, I know they're all dead. Sorry,
but this is the adopted one.
Right, but for causes that weren't genetically, it's linked, was only 1, right?
If this was me, and I had suffered all of these tragedies, my kids would not be out of my motherfucking sight. There's no way my kids would fall down the stairs because they would be attached to me 24/7.
But is that an unfair perspective of a mom who's trying
I'm just saying if it was me.
I know, but that's...
I mean, my kids are in their 20s and they're still strapped to me 24/7 because I'm worried about them all the time. So this one is a little suspect to me.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I don't know. I mean, maybe she's so depressed she's checked out. Also, why are you adopting kids? I don't know. The whole thing seems
maybe if at that time she thinks it's genetic, then why would that not? I mean, maybe.
But then you let him fall down the stairs?
Well, but again, that's a little blamey by saying, I mean, in theory, if we assume innocence.
So he died.
But like, if we assume innocence first, is the fact that we would assume it was an accident, not that she let him fall down the stairs.
I know, but
because if all the other things have something
so how old is he?
Saying medical, because like the first thing
1981, and she adopted him. Let's see what his age is, because the age determines the level of supervision.
In 2022, there's this in the scientist.com a research article put out about a newly found particle enzyme that has been associated with a greater risk of sudden infant death syndrome, a mysterious condition that kills 1,250 infants under the age of 1 in the United States in 2019.
Yeah, that's why I never slept. I still don't sleep. I haven't slept in almost 30 years because I was afraid I was on death watch all the time. I never slept.
I think a lot of parents are scared of that happening.
Well, yeah. I mean, even when Stella was born,
right,
I would get up all during the night to make sure she was breathing.
Well, what's interesting, because this is 2022. This last year was the first time that a potential biomarker has been placed on a potential increased risk. But does that mean every single child? No. Does it mean that it's causal? No. Like it's just correlated.
So Michael was born August of 78.
Okay.
Died February of 81. So a little tyke we're talking about here. Like 2 years old. You should be supervising the stairs, in my opinion. So Tammy Lynn, the last child, was born in August of 85. And she died later that year in December of being smothered. So this one's a little different because this is the one where there's actually experts were able to show that there was foul play.
Okay.
And this is the first time there's concerns being like actually raised about what's going on.
Okay.
The Tinnings were visited by the Department of Social Services on that same day and by the police department.
How many children is this now?
Well, this is the 9th child.
Okay. Sorry, I just had to say, thank goodness someone's getting involved. I was hoping it was around the
8 children have died.
6, but my 7% kombucha. Sorry.
8 children have died. That's a lot of children to die. I mean, it's a tragedy all the way around. Anyway, you look at it. So the causes of all the children's deaths are really diversely attributed. So some are natural, undetermined, or SIDS. 6 autopsies took place after Tammy Lynn's death.
How young was the youngest?
Nobody lived to 4.
No, but what was the youngest that they died? Because SIDS is like I looked up and it says it is 1 month and a year.
Yeah, I think of it.
With most happening between 1 and 4 months of age. So I'm just wondering, like some of those that are.
Yeah, it was in that timeline.
It is an unexplained death of a baby younger than 1 year old, sometimes called crib death. But now they have the biomarker thing that might be helpful. But 1 month, 1 month to 1 year is the consistent.
So after Tammy Lynn died, there were 6 autopsies performed, but they could not find any signs of abuse. And prior to Tammy Lynn's death, there had been no suspicion about all these deaths. There were so many of us on it, I guess, said Dr. Robert L. Sullivan, the county's chief medical examiner. If anyone is negligent, I suppose I am. I probably should have said there must be more to it than this, but we all think and don't do. I
mean, is that your code of ethics, sir? But okay. We all think but don't do. Like what a horrible.
So we have a natural death happening first. Okay. We have a whole bunch of deaths after that nobody was suspect about at the time, which I think is important.
Yeah. And
even in the autopsies, they couldn't find any signs of abuse. And then this last child, they did think that the kid had been smothered. So there was a trial. Marybeth and Joseph, her husband, were separately taken to the police department.
Yeah, Joseph hearing all this.
Yeah. During the interrogation, Marybeth signed a document confessing that she had murdered Tammy Lynn, and she was arrested and charged with the murder.
We've had multiple cases that we have done in here where the false confession of being pressured into it too.
Yes, she later claimed that her confession was made under duress, and that police had threatened her, and that her repeated requests for a lawyer were denied.
Well, and the pressure too of she already has the pressure of I need to keep making babies. I didn't even think the dad was involved. I never even thought that based on how.
But he's around. What's going on, right?
Well, he's making babies. I didn't even think about that until now. Yeah. So, but nobody's asking or like it's not his name at the start of all of this, it's hers.
Nobody knows about Joseph Tinning.
And she's the one that's like, I have to keep having kids, which is probably a societal pressure thing too.
That's what she said. That's what I'm supposed to do.
Right. Okay.
Yep. So Tammy Lynn's pediatrician testified, saying that Marybeth had dismissed his suggestion that she should install a specialized alarm device which monitors baby's breathing and heart rate, that can help prevent SIDS. Experts from the SIDS Foundation also came forward and said that it wasn't SIDS and that Tammy Lynn was smothered to death with a soft object.
Ooh, I mean, for them to say that, that's pretty, because the whole thing is it's an unexplained death.
Right. So there was a trial that went on for 6 weeks, and they found Marybeth guilty of 1 count of second-degree murder. Part of their deliberation involved having the jurors hear portions of the husband Joseph's testimony.
I was going to say, wow, how is he getting ruled out of all of this?
Well, he's ruled out. But in the testimony, he said he had a 5-minute conversation with his wife after police questioning, and she told him, "I killed Tammy." Marybeth was acquitted of deliberately causing the infant's death, but was convicted of murder by, quote, depraved indifference to human life, which I didn't know was a charge, but that's what she went to prison for.
Okay.
So her husband stood by her and later said, "I still think she's innocent." So she spent 20 years in prison for smothering Tammy Lynn. And she applied for parole 7 times. And during one of those, she said, "I just don't think I had the capabilities of being a good mother at all." And, I don't think everybody is cut out to be a parent. I think there's some truth to that.
Well, and at that point, like, after you've lost 9 kids regardless, and you gotta,
and that's so devastating.
As I say, if you assume that she didn't,
I have questions.
How would that impact like your view of yourself as a parent going to prison for it? But if she didn't,
rep out there, like if you Google her, it's gonna come up Munchausen by proxy serial killer. Like that's her rep. But when I was really diving into it, I'm like, I don't think that's what's going on here. Like maybe she did smother her 9th child, but then there's maybe a lot of trauma leading up to that. I don't know what happened with these other kids. It's difficult to know. Should you let your 2-year-old fall down the stairs? No.
But where's dad too?
But shit happens.
And yeah.
Yeah, because I think he's probably working old-timey model.
Right, but like what's the actual evidence that she did it and not him? And when she's just taking the blame, she's already taken that very submissive role.
No, they blame the mother for everything.
Well, yeah, and he said that she told him that. He said that she told him that.
That was a big part of it, and also her confession under duress.
Which she said was under duress later.
Yes.
Because she had stress of losing a 9th child and said that she saw it.
I mean, what kind of state are you going to be in through this whole, years of...
Again, losing 1 child is enough.
Devastating. It's your life over. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, and the fact that she kept trying and having that happen, I mean...
So she did admit to killing Tammy Lynn eventually.
I was going to say, very possibly she did.
Yes. So here's what she said. So it was during one of her parole requests. She said, "After the deaths of my other children, I just lost it. I became a damaged, worthless piece of person. And when my daughter was young, in my state of mind at that time, I just believed that she was going to die also. So I just did it." And, I get that psychologically. Like, why wait for it? Like I want it under my control. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, but you can even follow that trail all the way back to like the very first child's death of that loss of control.
Yeah, and that first one is attributed to natural causes.
Right.
So this all starts with very serious trauma.
And it's the first. Like,
I don't know what happened in the middle. She admits to killing the 9th one, but I don't think she needs the serial killer moniker on her forever, but that's what she's got. So I don't think this is Munchausen by proxy.
Because to me there is, if she did, which she was convicted, so whatever, so she murdered them for public eye, so, or murdered one is what, convicted?
Yes, she's
Okay.
convicted. Well,
Right.
It wasn't murder, it was that other thing
Yeah,
that I
other,
said.
which is odd.
A natural, a depraved indifference
not
to human life.
Mental health, anything. So the thing is nobody's reporting, like, the husband's not reporting odd or bizarre behaviors, or, you know, I'm not hearing like psychotic symptoms.
No, I couldn't find any evidence of any of that.
But
or there was no evidence of like severe childhood trauma. Mm-hmm. They say like she didn't get like one-on-one positive parent attention, but who did back then? Nobody did.
Not their kids. Too soon? I don't know.
Well,
too soon? Okay, sorry. I don't know.
So I think she has an unfair label, given that we don't have evidence to that.
Right.
That she killed all her kids.
Right. I mean, ultimately there was something mental healthy happening somehow.
It had to be.
I mean,
you can't lose 8 children and not have something going on. 9 children.
Right. Unless they're saying from the get-go she was that way. But bringing them in and going through this, like, if she's getting a need met, then, or not getting a need met.
I'm sure she got a lot of sympathy out of this.
Right. I was about to say she got, like, they even said like all the doctors, like,
I'm 100% sure she got sympathy, but I think eventually it was not sympathetic. People are probably suspect. Right. That's my guess.
Well, and if you're known for being the one that had, like, your children genetically die at a certain age, like, and you've already traumatized your brain to that point, like, what about that, kind of willing it to be sort of thing of, if you tell a child no enough, like,
self-affirming,
yeah,
self-fulfilling prophecy.
Self-fulfilling prophecy, and there's research to show that, like, telling a kid or even adults, don't do that. They're more likely to do the thing you don't want them to do. So if the whole town is labeling her as that, like, what psychological damage can that do too?
Right, and you know where she said, "I just believed that she was going to die also, so I just did it." I mean, that anxiety of like, when is it going to happen? I know it's going to happen. When is it going to happen? You're going to want to take control of that,
and that's more,
and just make it happen.
Right.
It's like when you think someone's going to break up with you, and you're like, "Well, I'm just going to break up with them."
Right. Which, or,
I want the control of the situation.
And that's kind of what I was talking about. And like, you get really angry in those, like, that self-sabotagey thing. Like, you'll just blow it up because you feel like, I'll do it first.
Yeah, the anxiety is too much.
Right. Because now I'm hearing like mercy, she cares, that rules out antisocial, empathy, like, so I'm not hearing psychosis, but however, like, the whole thing with the, like, postpartum depression is the psychosis can be episodic and triggered by high anxiety or stress.
Yeah.
And it can be very dangerous.
Yeah, and I would like to know, was hubby around when the adopted kid fell down the stairs?
And what support did she have as a mom? Like,
these days, those times, you know, it was typically the mom home and the dad out, you know, bringing home the bacon.
Well, I mean, modern day times with parents that I know who are very supportive of each other, around each other a lot, have financially stable, like,
I mean, still shit happens.
Well, and still get depression after
pregnancy.
Tragedies happen. And having kids is hard, stressful.
Oh my god, it's so hard.
It's
a lot of work. You never sleep. It's expensive.
But there's like this idolized version of what parenthood looks like. Is this really? I've had multiple parents like I wanted to have kids for this reason, and I thought it was going to look different.
Oh yeah, because it's a lot of fucking work. Have you ever seen Chelsea Handler's video on why she chose to not have kids?
No.
It's hilarious. You need to watch it. she says it in a way only Chelsea Handler can.
Yes. Okay.
She's like, yeah, just
I'll watch it.
I'll send you like, yeah, a lot of people purposely know like they don't want kids and shouldn't have kids, and
maybe she didn't want kids and socially felt like she had to.
Well, yeah, and those times I think people were expected to have kids. I think still people are expected to have kids.
I mean, I subscribe to the cultural norm that murder is wrong and murdering kids is wrong. So I hope like most probably did that it wasn't that. But
the last one might have been.
Right.
She did admit to that one. But the other 7, I don't know. I'm holding out judgment, and I don't think she meets serial killer status. I don't think she meets Munchausen by proxy status.
I don't even know what that means still, so I can't.
Nobody knows.
How can those behaviors exist and not have a gain?
Right. I know. It doesn't make any sense. So she did get out on parole and is living a low-key life back in the old home she used to live in with her husband.
Interesting.
Her husband was never implicated in anything, and
so odd.
Said he's very glad that it's all over with.
Sounds like someone who got away with murder.
She will remain
allegedly
under community supervision for the rest of her life.
Well, and again, like, kind of odd to go back. Like, I would feel a little scorned at that point of like.
You want the plot twist?
Yeah, please do. Did she murder?
She had allegedly confessed to trying to kill her husband Joe in 1974 by poisoning his grape juice with phenobarbital using pills she reportedly got from a friend with epilepsy.
Oh man. I hate that I
mean, like, good old Joe, taking her back, water under the bridge. You tried to murder me. You served 20 years for murdering our kid.
I mean, I hate that I kind of recognize a step ahead of what you're going to say each time for someone that has no games and we can't understand.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying.
That's how I felt too.
I'm just saying, if there was even if he was a party to, like, even if he was there, even if he, soothed her during those moments, it's fine. So, like,
at some point, Joe was annoying the shit out of her to the point that
right, like,
allegedly she tried to poison him to death.
For some. Yeah, I mean, but to go back to him after that means there's a strong attachment, something trauma bond, may have
something, or she may have had nowhere else to go. She's been in prison 20 years,
which makes sense, and the stigma that's now attached to her. Yeah. And what do you do from there but poison him allegedly?
Well, I think if anybody out there is like
that. Just don't do it.
Like labeling her as like a serial killer. I think we need to pull that back a little bit because I don't think the evidence supports that.
Well, they liked, especially the idea of a female serial killer. Like people get excited about that for whatever reason.
Culturally blame them on.
We talk about taboos, like women killers, and the axe murder woman. The one that I did the topic on.
Lizzie Borden.
Thank you.
Took an axe, gave her mother 40 whacks.
And even
saw that what did she have done? She gave her father 41.
Right, which that isn't even right.
No, but it rhymes.
It does.
And you can jump rope to it.
Right. Where is the serial killer rhyme for all the men?
Where is it?
I don't know.
Good question.
I don't think it exists.
It doesn't.
Why not?
It's all Cinderella dressed in yellow.
It's like a couple.
It's all Miss Mary Mac.
And most of them actually qualify for either like it's a mass murder or it's crime related, like a robbery, or it's trauma, attachment, abuse, neglect, being sexually abused, and
I think people want it to be true because it's horrifying and shocking that somebody would kill 8 babies. Like that's shocking. Mm-hmm. So I think the part of it, people want it to be treated like that part of humanity that's like kind of intrigued by that
envy part, like
people that like are subversive,
sort of
subversive nature. Yeah.
Well, and maybe it's because that if this could be real, where she's having genetic, that means it's possible. Where if it's a her problem, then we can villainize her and not make it either society or a people problem.
Yeah.
Or a husband problem. Going back to our last episode.
Husband problem. Yeah. The Freud problem. It always comes back to Freud. You know what's interesting? No, never mind. Let's wrap it up. I'll tell you later.
Sounds good.
If you haven't listened to our last one, we went into a real taboo topic. We talked about incest, which, you know, you may feel like you don't want to, excuse me, listen to that, but I think we took some interesting approaches to it. Talked about incest in pop culture and how people are intrigued. Yeah. We did, yeah. And support us on Patreon. You get all kinds of exclusives.
Like the videos of me spilling wine on myself during this podcast.
Yep, we post all full videos of our podcast and lots of other extra stuff.
Yeah. Until next time.
Don't click. Don't click on it, for God's sakes.
Don't click. And I know I've done this one multiple times before, but I'm going to do it now too. Don't murder. Don't murder. Just don't murder.
Yeah. Unless.
Don't murder children. Yeah. Do you feel better about that?
I feel better about that, yeah.
I mean, broadly speaking.
Yeah.
Despite
no good reasons for that are springing to mind, so I'm on board with that.
Okay. A DBT skill comes to mind here, or just an idea from DBT that a feeling doesn't have to have an action attached to it. You can feel like a child deserves something without acting on it.
Stress tolerance, yo.
Right. Breathe through that. Don't murder and don't click.
Touch grass.
Device settings disable when you're not using it. And if you never use it, just disable it.
This is a lot of until next time.
And until next time again.
Bye. We have a lot of tips. I feel like we gotta figure it out. This is free.